You know, it's amazing what people choose to talk about, apparently, as opposed to what's actually happening. They choose to selectively look at things through a certain lens. Well, well, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be a multi-part series where we examine, give strategy, maybe give direction, misdirection, and report on what's happening with this story. I believe of maybe 5 centuries. This hasn't happened in maybe 5 centuries. What's occurring? Yes, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it. We're either at the starting point, either the very beginning, hopefully the middle, and we're all lucky to be so lucky to live to see the end point of women's awakening. Now, this is for mostly the ladies, but you gentlemen who are allies. We know some of you have been there from the beginning for centuries. We appreciate you. So, this is for you. For those of you who are misogynists, don't understand history, don't understand tendencies of masculinity, for those of you who don't keep an open mind, this might not be your final resting point. Meaning you might want to tune away. This is not going to be for your ears because you're not receptive to it. This is a women's awakening. It doesn't mean the men won't be awakened, but they're being awakened in a totally different way, and their behavior is apparent. You know, I want to highlight something that just recently happened. People are going to gloss over and say, how do you get to a great women's awakening from this story? But it happened in Spain. Look what happened. No joke. A woman alleges that, well, while she was in her workplace, her supervisor boss, they were in a restaurant or something. Her supervisor boss tried to rape her. And so what she did was, well, she diced off or cut off his, genitalia, his male genital area, his penis. She cut it off. And he had to get rushed to the hospital to have an emergency operation to see if they could reattach the sucker. And she got detained and questioned. And now they're saying part of her story is not matching up to what she originally told law enforcement in Spain. And so now they're holding her without bail because they think that, she might have did it for a different reason. The motive is still to be determined. But apparently they were living together. But they weren't married. So they were cohabitating. Okay. You know, that's more the norm nowadays than marriage. Most people aren't getting married. And you can say, it's because, times have changed and young people desire different things than, previous generations desired. But that's not really what it's about. It's about, structure, norms, and, seeing that those structures and norms weren't successful. People don't want to, repeat the failure. You see, everybody talks about how bad the kids are nowadays, but nobody talks about how bad the kids must have been back, in previous days to get the planet to the point where it's this fucked up. I mean, if we don't turn around the planet ecologically, meaning stop doing all of the, things that we're doing to kill the planet, we won't have another generation. That's maybe why they decided to call it Generation Z, You know, a little clue, a hint to the wise, maybe it's not sufficient anymore. You know, and Gen Z might not even see their whole a good long lifetime. Not as long as they could live. Gen Z could potentially live to be 150 to 170 years of age and comfortable. But well, we won't get there if the air is polluted. We won't get there if there's no animals on the planet because you keep eating them. No, we have to get there by doing smart, sensible things, you know? And that doesn't mean that, well, we all go communist. But it was Grimes that offered that suggestion. That, well, we don't necessarily go communist, but we go, well, more environmental. She was talking about farming. She was talking about, well, cooperative things. Things that were discussed, well, back in the 60s and 70s during the last upheaval in mostly the United States, but throughout the whole entire planet. Because, like, everybody thinks about it from an American lens. But remember, a lot of countries gained their independence in the 1960s when everything was happening in the United States during the Civil Rights era. People don't remember geopolitics. They only remember national. And that could be happening again in a larger, more impactful way through a lot of different facets. And women have a key role to play. Women are now, well, in more structures of power than ever before. And that's challenging to men. That's very challenging to men. That's challenging to their masculinity. Your supervisor, well, we don't know if he tried to rape the woman or not because the story is changing. But it does sound like there was enough abuse to the point where she wanted to cut off his penis. I mean, that's pretty, well, that's severe. That shows that there's been some other issues boiling, and that was the straw that, well, snapped the camel's back. You know, this is part 1 of the Women's Great Awakening. I hope you join me for part 2. We're going to talk some very interesting things because, well, what's happening nowadays is very interesting indeed.